You know that feeling when you're trying to speak English, maybe in a meeting or just chatting?
Yeah, like you know what you want to say.
Exactly. But it just feels s stuck. Getting the words out smoothly, confidently, that feels like the real mountain to climb sometimes.
We've definitely all been there. It's a common hurdle.
Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. We got some really practical advice, things you can actually do,
Yeah,
yes, listening,
yeah.
to speak English more fluently and, importantly, with more confidence.
And the cool thing is this isn't just theory, right? It comes from an actual English lesson, stuff focused on real-world application,
Right. Practical strategies, things you can use day to day.
not just abstract grammar rules.
So think of this deep dive as unpacking these 10 specific tips. We want to get into why they work.
And how you can actually make them part of your routine.
Yeah, cut through the overwhelm and hopefully get to some real aha moments. Sound good?
Sounds great. Where do we start?
Okay, let's jump in. Tip number 1, read English aloud. Simple, right?
Seems simple, yeah. But it's got layers to it. The source material really emphasizes this one early on.
Why is that, do you think? People often just read silently.
Well, maybe feeling a bit self-conscious, you know?
Yeah.
But actually saying the words out loud,
Yeah.
it does a lot.
Totally. The first big benefit is pretty clear. It helps your pronunciation and your rhythm, your intonation.
Right, the musicality of the language.
Exactly. Like, people sometimes comment on my clarity, and honestly, a lot of that is just from years of, well, basically doing this, talking aloud, training how my mouth and ears work together,
That makes sense, because you're not just seeing the words, you're physically making the sounds.
and hearing them back instantly.
Yeah, it's like multisensory learning. It helps lock in the correct sounds, the natural flow, almost like muscle memory for speaking.
Oh, I like that. Muscle memory for your mouth. And it's not just about sounding clear, is it?
Yeah.
The second point is about comprehension.
Right. Reading aloud actually helps you understand and remember vocabulary better.
How's that work?
Well, because you're engaging more parts of your brain. You see it, you say it, you hear it. It forces you to process the meaning as you go.
Ah, so it's more active than just skimming silently.
Definitely. It helps you grasp how words fit in sentences, the nuances, and that helps make them stick in your memory.
Okay, that makes sense. And the third reason really hit home for me. It builds confidence. Just practicing the act of speaking.
How so?
Well, I remember learning Korean, reading silently,
Yeah.
no problem. But the second I had to read aloud in class,
Nerves kicked in.
oh, big time. I was so worried about messing up. My confidence just, like, evaporated.
That's so common, that vulnerability. But the source says, and your story proves it right, the more you do it, the more you push past that discomfort.
The easier it gets.
Yeah,
Each time you practice reading aloud, you build a little more belief in your ability to actually speak.
exactly. So it's not just noise. It's a full workout for your spoken English. Pronunciation, comprehension, confidence, the whole package.
Great first tip. Okay, let's move to number 2. This one feels foundational. Don't worry about making mistakes.
Ah, yes. A classic piece of advice, but so, so important. The source really hammers this home. Progress often starts when you change how you see errors.
So, not as failures, but as what?
As learning opportunities. Essential ones, actually.
Yeah, that's the first reason given, right? Mistakes show you where you need to focus. If you never messed up, how would you know what to work on?
Exactly. They're like little signposts. Hey, maybe review this grammar point or practice this sound a bit more. It's feedback.
Instead of getting discouraged, you use it.
Okay. Reframe it as data for improvement.
And the second reason is interesting. Being okay with mistakes actually encourages you to experiment more with new words, different sentence structures.
Definitely. Think about it. If you're terrified of getting it wrong, you'll stick to the simple stuff you know. You won't take risks.
Like in that online community mentioned. People feel safe to just try things out, even if it's not perfect.
And that's crucial.
Yeah.
That experimentation, that willingness to play with the language is how you move towards real fluency. Not just knowing rules, but using the language creatively.
It makes speaking less stressful, I imagine, which links to the third reason. Less worry equals less fear equals more natural flow.
Precisely. You know, that hesitant speech full of ohs and ums.
Yeah, when someone's clearly overthinking every word.
A lot of that comes from the pressure of trying to be perfect. When you let go of that fear of mistakes, your mind is freer to just communicate.
And the words come out more smoothly, more naturally.
Exactly. It flows better.
Okay, so the big takeaway here is embrace the errors. They're not stopping you, they're actually helping you get there. Stepping stones, not roadblocks.
Well put. Shall we move to the mirror?
Haha, yes. Tip number 3, practice speaking in front of a mirror. I admit, this one might sound a little weird to some people.
It can feel awkward at first, for sure, but the source gives some good reasons why it's actually pretty useful, especially if you feel like, who can I practice with?
Right, it tackles that I have no one to talk to issue. So what's the main benefit?
Confidence again, but in a visual way. You actually see yourself improving. It's a form of self-assessment.
How does that work, just watching yourself talk?
Yeah. You become your own audience. You see how your mouth moves when you make certain sounds. You see your facial expressions. You notice your posture.
Okay, so you get direct visual feedback.
Exactly. And you can make adjustments. You see yourself getting more comfortable, more natural over time.
And it's not just the mouth movements, is it? The second point is about body language, expressions, gestures.
Huge. Nonverbal communication is massive. The source mentions noticing if you look angry when you're just concentrating hard on speaking English.
I can totally see that happening. You're focusing so much you forget to, look approachable.
Right. The mirror helps you catch that. Are you slouching? Frowning? You can consciously practice smiling a bit, making eye contact, even just with yourself.
It helps you manage the whole impression you give when speaking.
Exactly. Projecting more confidence and engagement.
And the third point seems key for nervous speakers.
Mm.
It's a safe space. No judgment.
Totally. Just you and your reflection. No fear of criticism, no pressure. You can stumble, repeat yourself, try out weird phrases. It doesn't matter.
It eliminates that performance anxiety element.
Which allows you to relax and build confidence gradually, privately.
Okay, I'm sold. The mirror isn't just for checking your hair. It's a practice partner. Right, tip number 4 builds on this self-observation idea. Record yourself speaking and then listen back.
Ooh, this one can be tough for people, hearing your own voice.
It can be a bit cringy, can't it? But the source says the objectivity you get is invaluable. Self-assessment is the main thing.
Why is listening back different from just hearing yourself while you speak?
You catch things you just don't notice in the moment. Maybe you overuse a filler word like or like.
Or maybe a certain sound isn't as clear as you thought it was.
Exactly. Recording lets you step back, be the listener instead of the speaker. You get a much clearer picture of your strengths and weaknesses.
Like getting an objective analysis.
Pretty much. And the second reason is powerful. Tracking progress over time.
Ah, yeah. Seeing how far you've come. That's motivating.
Definitely. Imagine recording yourself now, and then again in 3 months or 6 months, listening back to the old ones.
And hearing the improvement. That would be a huge boost. It shows the work is paying off.
It provides concrete evidence of your development. Keeps you going.
Good point. And the third benefit, self-correction.
Right. You don't always need someone else to point out your mistakes. You can often hear them yourself when you listen back.
That's empowering, isn't it? Becoming your own coach, in a way.
It really is. You identify an issue, maybe pronunciation, maybe awkward phrasing, and you can work on it directly. It builds independence as a learner.
So, despite the initial awkwardness, recording yourself is a really effective feedback loop.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move to number 5. This is one I swear by, personally, from my Korean learning. Listen to and imitate native speakers.
Including yourself, the source notes.
Well, yes. And it's true. Imitation is such a powerful tool for picking up the subtleties,
Like pronunciation, intonation, rhythm, the stuff that makes you sound natural.
Exactly. The source mentions my story about sometimes being mistaken for a native Korean speaker. That wasn't from textbooks. That was from hours and hours of listening and consciously mimicking. It works.
So the first reason it's so good is developing that natural accent and intonation.
Right. You're not just learning sounds in isolation. You're absorbing the music of the language, how sentences flow, where the stress falls.
Getting that intuitive feel for it.
Yes. That's crucial for sounding less like you're reading from a script.
And the second benefit, picking up idioms and expressions.
Oh, definitely. You hear how native speakers actually use phrases in real conversations. It's not abstract anymore.
You learn them in context, which is way better than just memorizing lists.
This is so much better.
Yeah.
You start to understand the nuance. When it's appropriate to use a certain idiom, it just sinks in more naturally.
And the third point is about confidence again, modeling fluent speakers.
Yeah, it's like it gives you a target. You hear someone speaking clearly and fluently, and you think, okay, that's what I'm aiming for.
It provides a sense of direction, maybe? Reassurance that you're learning the right way to say things.
Exactly. You're actively trying to sound like someone who's already proficient. So listen actively, and don't be afraid to mimic. Copy the sounds, the rhythm. Okay, tip 6. This is a big one. thinking in English.
Ah, the internal shift. This is fundamental, isn't it? The source makes a strong link between thought and speech.
It really does.
Yeah.
If you're constantly thinking in your native language and then translating.
It creates a delay,
Yeah.
an extra step, and it often sounds less natural.
Right. That's why I always talk about think and speak English being connected.
Mhm.
The more you can train your brain to just operate in English.
The faster and smoother your speaking becomes.
Precisely. Oh, and speaking of resources, this reminds me the source mentioned that free email newsletter. It's got loads more tips on this kind of thing. You can find it at speakenglishwithtiffany.com/newsletter. Just a quick plug.
Good reminder. So, back to thinking in English. First advantage, faster thinking and response times.
Yeah. If you practice thinking in English when you're alone, narrating your day, planning things, you're essentially warming up for real conversations.
So when someone asks you something, your brain is already in English mode. Less scrambling.
Exactly. It makes real-time interaction feel less demanding.
And the second reason follows logically. Better fluency, less translation effort.
This is huge. That constant mental translation loop, native language, thought, translate, speak English, is exhausting and inefficient.
Thinking directly in English cuts out that middleman.
It does. Thoughts flow more directly into words. It speeds things up and often leads to more natural phrasing because you're not just swapping words, you're thinking within the structure of English.
And the third benefit is a more natural, more competent style overall.
Yeah, because if your thoughts are already organized in English, your delivery is likely to be more coherent, more confident.
You trust the thoughts themselves more, maybe?
I think so. You've already processed them in the target language. So making that conscious shift, really trying to live your inner life in English as much as possible, it's a game changer.
Definitely a core skill. What's next? Tip 7.
Tip 7, practice summarizing. Now, this might seem like a writing or reading skill, but the source connects it strongly to speaking.
That's interesting. How so? It mentions even native speakers can struggle with being concise.
Oh, totally. I remember helping an American friend learn to summarize better for work presentations. It's a skill in itself.
So what is summarizing, essentially?
It's about boiling things down, right? Taking a chunk of information, figuring out the main ideas, pulling out the key details, and leaving the rest.
Okay. And how does practicing that help your speaking?
Well, first, it strengthens your listening skills. If you listen to something, say, a news report with the goal of summarizing it.
You have to listen more actively for the important bits.
Exactly. You train your brain to identify key information while listening. And better listening comprehension obviously supports better speaking.
Because you understand better what you need to respond to.
Right. And the second reason is more direct. It enhances speaking by making you organize your thoughts concisely.
Ah, so when you practice summarizing, you learn to prioritize information.
Yes, you learn to get to the point, to structure your own spoken explanations clearly and efficiently. Less rambling, more impact.
That's a really valuable skill in conversation, being clear and brief.
Crucial. And the third benefit, confidence. Again, being able to deliver clear summaries.
If you know you can take in information and explain the gist effectively.
That boosts your overall confidence as a communicator in English. You feel more capable of handling information.
So summarizing isn't just about shortening things, it's about comprehension, organization, and confident delivery.
Exactly. Try it. Listen to a short podcast segment, read an article, then try to explain the main points out loud in your own words. It's great practice. Okay, tip number 8. Focus on one skill at a time.
Now, this one has a specific audience in mind, doesn't it? More for advanced learners.
Yes, the source makes that distinction. Beginners, lower intermediate folks probably need to juggle listening, speaking, reading, writing all at once. Build the foundation.
But once you're more advanced, say upper intermediate or higher, focusing might be better.
That's the idea. What? Well, first, it reduces that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Which is easy to feel. There's always more vocabulary, more idioms, more nuances.
Exactly. Trying to improve everything at once can feel impossible. But picking one thing, maybe advanced vocabulary or pronunciation of specific sounds or complex sentence structures.
Makes it feel more manageable. You
Yeah.
channel your energy.
Right. Instead of spreading yourself too thin, you go deep on one area.
The second reason is it allows for a more systematic approach. Well, if you decide, okay, for the next month, I'm focusing solely on improving my listening comprehension for fast speech. You can find specific resources, specific techniques just for that.
Like targeted practice. Podcasts known for speed, exercises focused on distinguishing sounds.
Exactly. It brings structure to your advanced learning rather than just randomly picking things up.
Makes sense. And the third reason, confidence through mastery.
Yeah, that feeling of really nailing one specific thing, making noticeable progress in that one chosen area.
That I got this feeling.
Right. Achieving that mastery, even in a small area, can really boost your overall confidence and motivate you to tackle the next skill.
So for you advanced learners listening,
Yeah.
maybe identify one specific area you really want to level up and dedicate some focused time to it. Don't try to boil the ocean.
Good advice. What's tip 9?
Tip 9. Use visual aids, something I love as a teacher.
Pictures, drawings, diagrams, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. The source mentions my experience teaching in South Korea and how visuals were just so helpful. Seeing what you're learning makes a difference.
Why are visuals so effective for language? First reason is better understanding of vocabulary and concepts.
Definitely. Think about the word lion. I can describe it, or I could just show you a picture.
Instant connection. The image bypasses the need for lots of explanation, especially for concrete nouns.
Exactly. It creates a direct link between the English word and the meaning, often skipping the need to translate back to your native language.
And the second reason, memory retention, visual associations.
Huge. Visuals act like really strong memory triggers. That image of the lion gets anchored to the word lion in your brain.
So when you hear or need the word later, the image helps you recall it.
Yeah, it provides another pathway for retrieval. That makes the memory stickier.
And the third point is about engagement and confidence, making learning more fun.
Let's be honest, just staring at lists of words can get boring.
Yeah.
Visuals make it more engaging, more dynamic.
Adds variety, maybe makes it feel less like hard work.
Exactly. If learning feels more enjoyable and less intimidating, you're likely to stick with it and feel more confident about the process. So, use flashcards with pictures, draw things, watch relevant videos, make it visual.
Great tip. Okay, we've reached the final one, number 10.
And it's arguably the most important one of all. Believe in yourself.
Ah, yes, the foundation for everything else. The source is really emphatic about this. You have to believe you can do it.
Absolutely. You can speak English confidently. You will. That belief has to be there. Why is it so critical? First reason, it fosters a positive mindset.
Right. It helps you fight back against those negative thoughts. English is too hard. I'll never be fluent. Everyone else is better than me.
That inner critic can be so destructive. Believing in yourself helps silence it, or at least turn down the volume. You approach challenges with more optimism, more determination.
It builds resilience, which leads to the second reason, boosting motivation and resilience for the long haul.
Because let's face it, learning a language is a long journey. There will be plateaus, there will be frustrating days.
And if you don't have that core belief in yourself, it's easy to just give up when things get tough.
Exactly. Self-belief is the fuel that keeps you going through those inevitable rough patches. It provides that inner strength to persevere.
Makes sense. And the third point, how does belief affect the actual speaking?
It translates directly into more confident, more fluent delivery. When you genuinely trust your abilities.
It shows. You sound less hesitant, more assured.
Absolutely. That inner confidence comes across in your voice, your posture, your willingness to engage. You communicate more effectively because you're not second-guessing yourself constantly.
That's powerful.
And this leads perfectly into that personal story shared in the source material. My experience learning Korean.
Right, that was very moving. The difficulty, failing the exam twice.
After studying so hard, I remember that feeling of just hitting a wall. The emotional breakdown before the third try.
That moment of almost giving up, losing belief.
Totally. And then regaining it. Partly thanks to my parents, that our family doesn't quit mindset, but also just digging deep and deciding, no, I can do this.
And then finally passing. It's such a clear example of how belief fuels perseverance and leads to success.
Exactly. And the source draws that direct line to you, the listener. If you're feeling discouraged right now, if you've hit a plateau, remember that story.
Everyone faces challenges. Even people who seem fluent now struggled at some point. But the impact it can have is actually pretty significant. The source material really flags this one early on. It mentions how a lot of learners, well, they tend to read silently inside their heads.
Right, maybe feeling a bit self-conscious about actually speaking.
Exactly. But the act of just, vocalizing the English text, it offers some really noticeable benefits.
Absolutely. And the first big one is how reading aloud really helps refine your pronunciation. And not just that, but also your rhythm, your intonation.
The music of the language.
Yeah, exactly. Like people sometimes comment on, the clarity when I speak. And honestly, a lot of that just comes from years of doing something similar. Practice. It trains how your mouth and your ear work together.
That's such a good point. Because when you read aloud, you're not just seeing the words.
Right.
You're physically making the sounds, and you're hearing yourself make them at the same time. That feedback loop?
Right. Multisensory.
Precisely. It engages multiple senses, and that really helps to, well, to burn in the correct sounds and the natural flow, the rhythm of English. It's like building muscle memory, but for speaking.
That's a great way to put it. Muscle memory for your mouth.
Yeah.
And it's not just about sounding clearer, is it? The second point is that reading aloud actually boosts your understanding
Comprehension, yeah.
and helps you remember vocabulary better.
Yeah.
It feels like your brain is processing it on like different levels simultaneously.
It really is. The source explains that because you're vocalizing, you're actively engaging your brain with the meaning as you speak. It's not passive, like just scanning the words. This active process helps you grasp how words work in sentences, those nuances,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps lock those words into your memory more effectively. Long-term retention.
Yeah, it sticks better. And what really hit home for me was the third reason they gave.
Yeah.
It builds your confidence. Just the simple act of practicing articulation, practicing fluency out loud.
Confidence is huge.
It is. I totally relate to that story shared about learning Korean. I remember I could read Korean silently, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the second I had to read it aloud in front of people,
Oh, yeah.
my confidence just evaporated. Poof. I was so worried about messing up the pronunciation or the flow.
That feeling is so common, isn't it? That vulnerability when you speak a new language out loud.
Definitely.
But just like your experience, the source points out that the more you consciously, deliberately practice reading aloud, even when it feels uncomfortable at first, the more natural it starts to feel. You push past that barrier, and each time you do it, you're building up that belief in your ability to actually speak the words.
Exactly. You prove to yourself you can do it.
Yeah.
So the big takeaway here for tip number 1 is that reading aloud isn't just about, making sounds.
Yeah.
It's a full workout for your spoken English. It helps your clarity, your understanding, your memory, and, crucially, your confidence. Okay, let's move to the second tip.
Right.
This one is, don't worry about making mistakes.
Ah, the classic. But so important.
Seems obvious, maybe, but the source really emphasizes this as like a core principle for getting better.
It really does. It suggests that real progress often kicks in when you shift how you think about errors.
How so?
Well, instead of seeing them as, failures or signs you're not good enough.
Right, which is easy to do.
Very easy. You start seeing them as, well, essential parts of learning, necessary even.
And the first reason they give for this makes so much sense. Mistakes are basically learning opportunities, huge ones.
Exactly. They shine a spotlight on the specific things you need to work on.
Yeah, if you never made a mistake, how would you even know what to practice or study more? You'd just be guessing.
Precisely. Mistakes are like little signposts saying, hey, maybe look at this grammar point again, or practice this sound a bit more.
Uh-huh.
So instead of getting down about them, you can see them as helpful information, data for improvement.
Reframing it like that is powerful. Okay, and the second reason, it's that being okay with mistakes encourages you to experiment more.
Yes. Experimentation.
Trying out new words, maybe more complicated sentences, without that fear holding you back. I like the mention of that online community.
www.dailyenglishLessons4u.
Right, where people feel safe enough to just try things, even if it's not perfect. That freedom to play with the language is vital for fluency, isn't it?
It's absolutely critical. When you're not paralyzed by the fear of getting it wrong,
Yeah.
you're just naturally more willing to take risks, to try that new phrase you heard or attempt a more complex sentence structure.
You stretch yourself.
Exactly. And that stretching, that active experimentation is what pushes you past just knowing the rules and into actually using the language creatively and fluently.
And the third reason ties into this nicely. Worrying less about mistakes reduces the fear of speaking itself.
Which is a huge barrier for so many people.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that reduced fear allows for a more natural, smoother flow when you talk. We've all heard it, right? That hesitant speech.
Yeah, uhs and ums.
Yeah, where you can almost hear the person mentally checking every word before they say it because they're so worried about perfection.
Mm-hmm. And often those fillers and hesitations come directly from that anxiety, that pressure to be flawless.
Right.
So when you let go of that pressure, when you accept that mistakes will happen.
You free up mental energy.
Exactly. You free up bandwidth to just focus on communicating your message. And the words tend to come out more smoothly, more naturally.
So the big message for tip 2 is really embrace the bumps in the road. Mistakes aren't roadblocks. They're actually the path. They're stepping stones towards fluency.
Well said. Stepping stones, not roadblocks.
Okay, that leads us to tip number 3. Practice speaking in front of a mirror.
Ah, this one.
Now, I know some of you might be thinking, feels a bit weird, maybe, talking to yourself in the mirror.
It can feel a little strange at first, yeah, I get that. But the source gives some really solid reasons why this can be surprisingly effective.
Especially if you feel like you don't have anyone to practice with regularly.
Right. It's a readily available practice partner, you.
So, the main benefit highlighted first is that it builds confidence because you can actually see yourself improving. It's a kind of visual self-assessment.
That's right. When you're doing your speaking practice, looking in the mirror, you're literally watching yourself speak English. You get direct visual feedback. How does your mouth move for certain sounds? What's your expression like? How's your posture?
Interesting.
And seeing yourself getting more comfortable, maybe looking more relaxed as you practice, that visual confirmation really boosts your belief that you are getting better.
I can see that. And it's not just about watching your mouth form the words, is it? The second reason is about refining your nonverbal communication.
Yes. Body language, facial expressions, gestures, all that stuff.
Which is so important in communication, but maybe we don't think about it enough when learning a language. The example about accidentally looking angry when you're concentrating hard on speaking English.
Oh, I bet many learners can relate to that. You're focusing so hard on the words.
Right, frowning in concentration.
And you might not realize you look unapproachable or even upset. The mirror helps you catch that.
So you can consciously work on it, like maybe reminding yourself to smile a bit or maintain eye contact, even with your reflection, projecting a more positive vibe.
Exactly. You become more aware of the whole picture, not just the sounds. And you can practice aligning your body language with the message you want to convey.
And the third point is really key, especially if you feel shy. The mirror provides a totally safe space. No judgment.
Absolutely crucial. It's just you. There's no one else there to potentially critique you or make you feel embarrassed. So you can really let go, experiment freely, make all the mistakes you want, stumble over words. It doesn't matter. It's a zero-pressure practice zone.
That freedom must be really helpful for building up the courage to speak in front of others eventually.
Immensely helpful. It lets you build that foundational confidence in a low-stakes environment.
Okay, so don't underestimate your reflection. It's a tool for self-awareness, for practicing the whole communication package and building confidence safely. All right, tip number 4.
Let's hear it.
Record yourself speaking, and then this is the important part, actually listen back.
The listen back. This one can feel even more confronting than the mirror for some people.
I know, right?
Ah.
Hearing your own recorded voice can be, well, a bit jarring sometimes.
It definitely can. We often sound different than we think we do, but the source really stresses how valuable this is, mainly for self-assessment.
Yeah, that objectivity it gives you, because when you listen back, you're not in the act of speaking anymore.
Exactly. You're listening as an outsider, almost.
And you inevitably notice things you just don't catch while you're talking. Like, maybe you overuse a certain filler word. Like,
Uh-huh. Or maybe a specific sound, like a T or an R, isn't as clear as you thought it was. Or perhaps your pacing is a bit off.
Right, things that are hard to monitor in real time. Recording lets you step back and analyze.
It gives you that distance, that objective perspective. It provides a much clearer picture of your actual strengths and, importantly, the areas where you could genuinely improve.
And the second big reason they mentioned is using recordings to track your progress over time.
Oh, this is so motivating.
Isn't it? The source really highlights the power of seeing or hearing, in this case, how far you've come.
Yeah, keeping those recordings, maybe one from this month, one from next month, and then going back after, say, 6 months and listening to the first one compared to the latest one, the difference can be incredible.
Totally. It gives you concrete proof that your hard work is paying off, which is fantastic fuel to keep going, especially when you hit a plateau or feel discouraged.
Absolutely. That tangible evidence of improvement is a massive confidence booster.
And the third point here is that recording yourself gives you a chance for self-correction. You don't always need someone else to point out your mistakes.
Right. You can become your own teacher, in a way.
Exactly. You listen, you notice something, maybe you consistently mispronounce a word, or your sentence structure sounds a bit awkward. And then you can actively work on correcting it yourself in your next practice session or recording.
That's a really empowering aspect. It fosters independence. You're not just passively waiting for feedback. You're actively seeking it out from your own performance and taking charge of your improvement.
It develops that critical listening skill for your own speech.
Definitely. Which is a hallmark of a really effective autonomous language learner.
So, yeah, even if it makes you cringe a little at first,
Yeah.
recording yourself speaking is incredibly valuable. Objective feedback, progress tracking, self-correction.
Mhm.
It's a powerful tool. Okay, tip number 5. This one was huge EE for me personally when I was learning Korean.
Ooh, which one is it?
Listen to and imitate native English speakers. And yes, the source does kindly include me in that category.
As it should. And yes, imitation. This is such a potent technique.
Isn't it?
The source is spot on here. Consciously mimicking native speakers is probably one of the most direct ways to pick up the subtleties of the language.
Absolutely. Like pronunciation, intonation patterns, the natural rhythm, even phrasing.
All those things that make speech sound authentic.
It really is a game changer. I mean, the source mentioned my experience, how sometimes people thought I might be a native Korean speaker.
Yeah.
And honestly, a huge part of that was just listening intently to native speakers and deliberately trying to copy how they spoke. The melody, the sounds, everything, it really works.
That's fantastic proof right there. And the first big reason why it works so well is that it directly helps you develop that natural-sounding accent and intonation. You're not just learning sounds in isolation from a textbook. You're absorbing the whole package, the rhythm, the stress patterns, the melody of spoken English.
Yeah, you start to get a feel for the music of it, the natural ups and downs, which is so critical for sounding less, robotic or foreign.
Exactly. It helps you internalize that flow. And the second benefit is how much it helps with understanding and using idioms and common expressions.
Oh, definitely, because you hear them used in context, right?
Precisely. You hear native speakers use these phrases naturally in conversation, and you start to absorb not just the meaning, but how and when to use them appropriately.
It's so much more effective than just memorizing a list of idioms. You get the context, the nuance.
You really do. It's learning in action. And the third reason is the confidence boost you get from modeling fluent speakers.
How does that work?
Well, when you consciously try to sound like someone who speaks English well, it kind of gives you a sense of direction, a target to aim for. It provides a model of success. And as you start to sound even a little bit more like your model, it gives you this feeling of, okay, I'm on the right track. I can sound like this.
That makes sense. It's reassuring.
Yeah.
You're not just guessing how it should sound. You're actively copying a proven example.
Exactly. It provides a clear goal and builds confidence as you get closer to it.
So the takeaway is, really listen to native English, whether it's podcasts, movies, conversations, or, well, us. And don't just listen passively. Actively try to mimic the sounds, the rhythm, the intonation. It makes a huge difference. Now, tip number 6. This is a big one.
Okay.
Think in English.
Ah, yes. The mental shift.
I talk about this a lot, the idea of think and speak English. They're so connected.
They really are. The source nails this. Your spoken output is basically a reflection of your internal thought process.
Right.
So if you're doing all your thinking in your native language and then translating everything in your head before you speak.
It adds an extra step, a delay.
Exactly. An extra layer of mental work. And that inevitably slows you down and can make your English sound, well, less natural, more translated.
That's precisely why I always emphasize that connection. The better you get at just letting your thoughts happen in English, the faster and more fluent your speaking will become. It's almost automatic. And actually, speaking of resources to help with this, I should quickly mention that free email newsletter the source talked about.
Oh, yeah, the newsletter.
Yeah, it's full of extra tips and encouragement for your journey. You can find it easily at speakenglishwithtiffany.com/newsletter. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Good reminder. It's a great resource for ongoing support.
Definitely. So, back to thinking in English. The first major advantage is speed.
Yes. Speed of thought and speed of response in conversations.
How does that work?
Well, the more you practice thinking directly in English, even just narrating your day to yourself or thinking about your plans in English, the quicker your brain gets at processing information and formulating responses in English. It's like training your brain for faster performance.
So when you're actually in a conversation, your brain is already warmed up, ready to go in English mode. Less lag time.
Exactly. It becomes more automatic, less effortful. You're prepared for those real-time interactions.
Okay, and the second reason is about improving fluency by reducing that mental translation effort.
Right. We touched on this, that common issue where learners construct the sentence perfectly in their native language first.
Yeah, in their head.
And then try to map it word for word or phrase for phrase into English. Thinking directly in English helps you bypass that whole translation step.
You cut out the middleman.
Pretty much.
Burn.
Your thoughts flow more directly into English expression, and that not only speeds things up, but it often leads to more natural, more idiomatic English, because you're thinking within the structures and patterns of English itself.
Rather than the patterns of your native language.
Precisely. And the third benefit is that it helps you develop a speaking style that just sounds more natural, more competent.
How so?
Well, when your thoughts are already organized in English, your delivery tends to be smoother, more confident, more coherent.
Because you're not struggling with the translation process simultaneously.
Exactly. You have more confidence in the thoughts themselves because they originated in English. They're already structured correctly, linguistically speaking. This leads to a more fluent and assured delivery.
Makes perfect sense. So consciously shifting that internal monologue, your thinking voice, into English, it's fundamental for real fluency, a game changer. Okay, let's move to tip number 7.
Yeah.
Practice summarizing.
Summarizing. Okay, this might seem a little less direct for speaking practice compared to the others.
It might, yeah. But the source makes a really strong case for it, and it even mentions that summarizing well can be tough even for native speakers.
That's true. Being concise is a skill.
Totally. I remember helping an American friend learn how to summarize more effectively for, like, reports and things. It's not always easy.
So what is summarizing at its core?
Well, it's basically taking a larger amount of information, something you read, something you heard, and boiling it down.
Condensing it.
Yeah, condensing it. Identifying the absolute main ideas, pulling out the most important supporting details, and leaving out the rest.
Okay. And how does practicing that help your speaking?
Good question. The first reason given is that it strengthens your listening skills. Specifically, your ability to pick out the key information when you hear English.
Ah, okay. So when you listen with the goal of summarizing later.
Exactly. You have to listen more actively, more critically. You're constantly asking yourself, what's the main point here? What's essential?
And that trains your brain to filter information better.
Right. Better comprehension. And that improved ability to quickly grasp the core message when you listen directly feeds into your ability to formulate clear points when you speak. You think more clearly.
Gotcha. So better input processing leads to better output planning.
Nicely put. And the second reason is that summarizing directly enhances your speaking skills by forcing you to organize your thoughts concisely. When you have to summarize, you can't just ramble. You have to prioritize. You have to decide what's most important and structure it logically and efficiently.
So it teaches you to be more purposeful in your communication, to get to the point.
Exactly. It trains you to avoid unnecessary fluff and deliver your message clearly and directly. A super valuable skill in any conversation or presentation.
Definitely. And the third benefit.
Confidence again. It builds confidence in your ability to deliver clear, coherent summaries.
Makes sense. If you know you can understand complex information and explain it concisely to someone else.
Yeah, that's a major confidence boost. It shows you have command over both understanding and expression.
It demonstrates a higher level of processing and communication skill.
Right. So the takeaway is actively practice this. Listen to a news report, read an article, watch a short video in English, and then challenge yourself. Can you explain the main points in just a few sentences, in your own words?
It's a great exercise. Okay, tip number 8.
Focus on one skill at a time.
Interesting. Because often the advice is to practice everything, right? Listening, speaking, reading, writing.
It often is, especially for beginners. But the source here adds an important nuance. It suggests that this one skill focus is particularly beneficial for learners who are already at a higher level.
Ah, okay. Upper intermediate, advanced learners.
Exactly. Why do you think that distinction is made?
Well, maybe because at those higher levels, the improvements needed are often more specific, more nuanced.
I think that's exactly it. You've got a decent foundation in everything, but perhaps you want to really refine your pronunciation of specific sounds, or master complex grammatical structures, or significantly expand your vocabulary in a particular area.
Right. Trying to improve everything at that level might feel overwhelming.
Precisely. Which leads to the first reason the source gives. Focusing on one skill reduces that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yeah, the English language is vast. New words, idioms, cultural nuances, it's endless.
Trying to tackle it all at once when you're already advanced can feel daunting. So picking one specific area, like, say, mastering phrasal verbs or improving your presentation skills, makes it feel much more manageable.
You channel your energy.
Right. Instead of spreading yourself thin, you concentrate your efforts for deeper impact in one area.
Okay, and the second reason?
It allows for a more systematic approach. Meaning, if you decide, okay, for the next month, I'm focusing only on improving my listening comprehension for fast speech, you can then find specific resources, specific techniques, specific exercises designed just for that.
So you tailor your learning plan very specifically to that one goal, more targeted.
Exactly. It's more structured, less random. You can track progress more clearly within that defined skill.
That makes sense. And the third reason is about confidence again, isn't it?
It is. It's about building confidence by achieving mastery in one area before moving to the next.
So when you focus intensely on, say, your pronunciation, and you start hearing real improvement, you get that feeling of, yes, I did it. I tackled this specific challenge.
Exactly, that I got this feeling.
Yeah.
And achieving that noticeable success in one area can really boost your overall motivation and confidence to then tackle the next skill you want to improve.
It creates positive momentum.
Precisely. So for you listeners who feel you're at that upper, intermediate, or advanced stage, maybe think about it. Is there one specific skill you really want to elevate? Consider dedicating a focused block of time to really mastering it. Okay, tip number 9.
Number 9.
Use visual aids.
Pictures. I like this one.
Me too. As the source mentions, I use visuals all the time when teaching in South Korea, and I still use them constantly with my students now.
And why are they so effective?
Well, think about it. If I just say a new word like serendipity, okay, maybe you know it, maybe you don't. But if I show you a picture or even just draw a simple sketch representing the idea.
It creates an immediate connection.
Exactly, which is the first reason. Visuals enhance your understanding, especially vocabulary and abstract concepts. The lion example in the source is perfect.
Right. You see the picture of the lion, you hear the word lion, bam, instant link. Much faster than a dictionary definition sometimes.
For many learners, yes. It bypasses the need for translation and creates a more direct, intuitive link between the English word and the concept or object itself.
Makes sense. And the second reason, memory, right?
Absolutely. Visuals are fantastic memory aids. They support retention through strong visual associations.
How does that work? Like, why does a picture help you remember the word better?
Because our brains are often wired to remember images more easily than abstract words. The visual acts like a trigger or an anchor.
A memory anchor.
Yeah. So later, when you're trying to recall the word lion, that mental image you stored pops up much more readily than just the letters L-I-O-N might. It makes retrieval easier.
Okay, so better understanding, better memory. And what's the third reason?
It's about engagement and, yes, confidence again. Using visuals provides a different, often more engaging way to interact with the language.
Less boring than just reading lists of words.
Totally. Learning doesn't always have to feel like serious hard work. Incorporating visuals, flashcards with pictures, diagrams, mind maps, watching relevant videos can make it more fun, more interactive.
And when learning is more enjoyable, you're more likely to stick with it.
Exactly. And feeling engaged and successful with visual methods can make you feel more confident about your ability to learn overall. It mixes things up.
So don't be afraid to get visual. Draw things, use image search, watch videos. Make it multisensory.
Precisely. Okay. We've arrived at the final tip. Number 10.
The big one.
I think so. Arguably the most important one of all. Believe in yourself.
Yes. The foundation.
Absolutely. The source is so clear on this. You have to believe deep down that you can do this, that you will speak English confidently.
It sounds simple, maybe even a bit cliche, but without that core belief, everything else is harder.
So much harder. And the first reason why is that self-belief cultivates a positive mindset towards the whole learning journey.
How does that help specifically?
It helps you fight back against those negative thoughts. You know the ones. English is too hard. I'll never be fluent. Everyone else is better than me.
That negative self-talk.
Believing in yourself helps you challenge that. It helps you approach learning with optimism and determination rather than fear and doubt.
It shifts your internal narrative from I can't to I can and I am.
Exactly. And the second key reason is that self-belief fuels your motivation and resilience.
Resilience. Yeah, that's crucial.
Because let's be honest, learning a language is a long journey. There will be tough days. There will be moments you feel stuck.
Definitely.
Believing in yourself gives you that inner strength, that grit, to keep going even when it's hard, to pick yourself up after a setback and keep practicing.
It's the engine that keeps you moving forward through the inevitable challenges.
Beautifully put. And finally, the third reason, Believing in yourself directly impacts how confidently you actually speak.
Really?
When you genuinely trust your abilities, even if they're still developing, that confidence comes across. You stand taller, you make eye contact, your voice is firmer.
You project self-assurance.
Yes. Even if you make mistakes, you deliver them with more confidence. Think about introducing yourself, saying, "Hi, my name is, I'm trying to learn English," versus, "Hi, my name is listener's name, and I'm learning English."
Big difference in energy and impact.
Huge difference. That underlying belief shines through. It makes your delivery more fluent, more natural, more impactful.
Absolutely. Your mindset directly affects your performance.
And this really brings us to that incredibly moving personal story shared in the source material, the story about learning Korean.
Yeah, that was powerful.
It really was. It illustrated this whole point so vividly. The sheer difficulty of the language, studying so hard, and then failing that big exam not once, but twice.
Oh, that must have been crushing.
Totally. And that moment described right before the third try of just breaking down, feeling like I can't do this anymore. That loss of belief.
We've all felt that despair at some point in a big challenge.
Absolutely. But then regaining it, finding that strength again, partly through that amazing family support. Our family doesn't quit.
That's incredible support.
It really is. And pushing through, taking the exam again, and finally passing, it's such a testament to the power of perseverance fueled by belief.
It really underscores that emotional roller coaster language learning can be, and how critical that inner belief is, especially when things get tough.
Exactly. And the parallel drawn to your journey, the listener's journey with English. It's so direct.
Sure.
If you're feeling discouraged right now, if you've hit a wall,
Remember this.
remember that setbacks happen, even to people who eventually succeed.
Yes. Don't give up on yourself. Keep nurturing that belief.
It's mostly visual,
Okay.
but reading aloud, that brings in your hearing, the physical act of speaking. It engages more of your brain.
Like creating stronger connections for the words.
Precisely. It taps into what's sometimes called dual coding processing information, both visually and verbally, helps lock it in better.
Okay, that makes sense. You're seeing, saying, and hearing. And what about understanding and remembering words? Does speaking them help there too?
It really does. It forces a deeper level of processing. You can't just skim past a tricky word when you actually have to say it.
Right, you have to confront it.
Yeah, and that makes your brain pay more attention. Plus, hearing yourself, that auditory feedback, it can actually highlight gaps in your own understanding.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. And the third thing she mentioned was confidence. Practicing articulation, getting fluent just by doing it. She shared that story about learning Korean.
Oh, right. Feeling nervous, reading aloud, even when she understood it perfectly.
Yeah, that feeling of knowing something but not being able to, do it confidently, that really resonates.
It absolutely does. It's a classic gap in skill learning. The knowing isn't always the same as the doing, especially under pressure.
So reading aloud builds that muscle memory.
Kinda, yeah. Like practicing scales on a piano.
Yeah.
It's the physical repetition that builds fluency and makes it feel, well, less scary. It builds that familiarity and sense of, I can do this.
Okay, crucial first step. Tip number 2, and this is a big one for a lot of people. Don't worry about making mistakes.
Oh, this is fundamental. Tiffany really hammers this home.
Why is letting go of that fear so important?
Because the fear itself is paralyzing. It stops you from even trying. Tiffany reframes mistakes beautifully.
Yeah.
They're not
The
failures.
feedback.
Exactly. Invaluable feedback. Each error is like a little signpost saying, okay, maybe look at this bit again. It's information.
Like a diagnostic tool. That's a great way to put it. She also said it encourages experimenting, right? Trying new words, new sentences.
Yes. When you're not terrified of getting it wrong, you're much more willing to step outside your comfort zone.
You can play with the language a bit more.
Precisely. It unlocks a kind of creativity. You try things out. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but you learn from the attempt.
And the other side of that is flow. She mentioned if you're constantly worried about mistakes.
Your speech gets choppy, right? Hesitant, full of ums and ahs.
Yeah, she demonstrated it. You're spending all your mental energy policing yourself instead of communicating.
Exactly. Accepting mistakes frees up that mental bandwidth. You can focus on the message, not on achieving some impossible standard of perfection on the fly. It flows better.
Okay, makes total sense. Let's move to tip number 3. Practice speaking in front of a mirror.
Right. This is a practical one, especially if you feel like, well, I don't have anyone to practice with.
Yeah, that's a common problem. So what are the benefits Tiffany sees here?
It's about self-awareness, but visually. Seeing yourself speak gives you a different kind of feedback.
How so?
Well, you move from just feeling like you're improving to actually seeing it. You
Oh.
can notice changes in how you articulate, how you hold yourself.
Like watching game tape if you're an athlete.
Kind of, yeah. And she specifically mentions body language, facial expressions, gestures.
I hadn't really thought about practicing that for language learning.
But it's so important, isn't it? How you look when you speak affects how people receive your message.
Sure.
Are you slouching? Do you look unsure?
Mm.
Or maybe, unintentionally angry?
Mm.
The mirror lets you see that
And adjust it.
and adjust it. Plus, the other key thing she mentions.
It's a safe space.
Exactly. No judgment. You can try things out, stumble, make those mistakes we just talked about without feeling self-conscious in front of someone else. It builds comfort with the physical act of speaking.
Okay, good practical advice. Tip 4 builds on this self-assessment idea. Record yourself speaking, then listen back.
Video's great if you can, she says, but even just audio is really valuable.
Why is this so effective? What does the recording give you?
Objectivity. That's the key. When you're speaking, you're juggling so much thinking, forming sentences, actually talking.
Right, you can't really monitor yourself accurately at the same time.
It's almost impossible. Listening back lets you step outside of that. You can analyze your own speech almost like you're listening to someone else.
Focusing on pronunciation or flow or maybe words you overuse.
Exactly. You can pinpoint specific things. And Tiffany highlights tracking progress over time.
Oh, that's motivating. Seeing or hearing how far you've come.
Hugely motivating. Because progress isn't always obvious day to day. Having those recordings creates a tangible record. Wow, listen to me 3 months ago compared to now.
And it gives you that chance for self-correction too, right?
Definitely. You hear a mistake, maybe a pronunciation thing you keep doing or an awkward phrase, and you can consciously decide, okay, I'm going to work on that.
Becoming your own coach, in a way.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, halfway there. Tip number 5, listen to and imitate native speakers.
A classic. And she includes herself, teacher Tiffany, as a model you can imitate.
So how does this help specifically, beyond just, sounding more native?
Well, that's the first big one Tiffany mentions, getting the accent and intonation more natural, the music of the language.
The rhythm and flow we talked about earlier.
Exactly. It's not just words. It's how they link together, the stress patterns, the pitch changes. Imitating helps you internalize that melody.
She also brings up idioms and expressions.
Yeah, the things that don't always translate directly. Textbooks often fall short there.
So listening helps you hear how they're really used.
Right. You hear them in context. Imitating helps you get a feel for when and how to use them appropriately, not just what they mean literally. It's about getting that intuitive sense.
And the third benefit, confidence again.
Yep. By modeling fluent speakers, you're essentially, you're practicing sounding confident and fluent.
Like acting as if.
Sort of. You're adopting the patterns of fluency. And that can create a positive cycle. The more you sound fluent, the more confident you feel, which helps you actually be more fluent. It provides a clear target to aim for.
Makes sense. Okay, tip number 6 is a big mental shift. Think in English.
Oh, yeah. This is a tough one for many learners, but Tiffany really stresses its importance.
Why is getting your thoughts into English so critical? Isn't speaking enough?
Because of the translation delay. If you're always thinking in your native language first,
Then translating.
then speaking, there's always going to be that lag. It makes conversation feels slower, more effortful,
And maybe less natural.
definitely less natural. Thinking directly in English cuts out that middle step. Your responses become quicker, more spontaneous.
So it speeds things up, improves fluency. What else? She mentioned avoiding translation causing awkward phrasing.
Right, because languages are structured differently. If you translate word for word, or even sentence structure for sentence structure,
Yeah.
you often end up with things that are grammatically okay, but just sound weird in English.
Not idiomatic.
Exactly.
Mm.
Thinking in English helps you naturally start using English sentence structures, English ways of connecting ideas. It helps you tap into the language's internal logic.
And she said it helps develop a more competent speaking style overall. It's about really living in the language mentally.
That's a good way to put it. It's about making English a primary tool for your thoughts, not just a code you translate into. It leads to more authentic expression.
Even when you're just, thinking to yourself during the day, that counts as practice.
Absolutely. Those quiet moments are perfect opportunities to try and narrate your thoughts or your day in English internally.
Interesting. Okay, tip 7. Practice summarizing.
And she notes, hey, Even native speakers can struggle with this sometimes.
Right. I think she mentioned helping an American friend with it. So why is condensing information so key for fluency?
Because it combines several skills. You have to understand the information first, obviously.
Listening or reading comprehension.
Right. Then you have to identify the main ideas, separate them from the less important details.
Critical thinking, prioritizing information.
Exactly. And then you have to organize those key points and express them clearly and concisely in your own words. It's a whole workflow.
So it directly strengthens listening, she says, by forcing you to actively pull out the important stuff.
Yes, you're training your brain to filter information effectively while listening or reading. You're listening for the core message.
And it improves speaking by making you organize your thoughts.
Definitely. You can't just ramble. A good summary requires structure, logical flow, being selective about what you include. It teaches clarity and efficiency in communication,
And the outcome is building confidence in delivering those clear summaries.
which is a super valuable skill in any situation,
Yeah.
right? Being able to grasp information and relay the gist effectively, it shows command.
Absolutely. Okay. Tip number 8 takes a slightly different angle. Focus on one skill at a time.
Yeah, listening, writing, speaking, reading.
Yeah.
Pick one area to zone in on.
And she mentioned this is maybe more for upper intermediate or advanced learners.
That's what she suggested, yeah. The idea is, once you have a decent foundation across the board, trying to improve everything at once can feel overwhelming and might lead to slow progress everywhere.
Spreading yourself too thin.
Exactly. So by focusing, say, dedicating a month just to improving your listening skills, you could really dive deep.
Use specific strategies for just that one skill.
Right. You might listen to different accents, do transcription exercises, things you wouldn't do if you're trying to juggle speaking practice and grammar study and everything else at the same time. It allows for a more systematic, targeted approach.
Less overwhelm, more focus. And she said it builds confidence by mastering one thing before moving on.
Yeah, that sense of, okay, I really leveled up my listening comprehension this month. That accomplishment can fuel you to then tackle another area, like speaking or writing. It's a more strategic way to keep progressing at higher levels.
Makes sense. Tip number 9, use visual aids,
Ah, yes. And she shares her own stories here.
like drawing pictures in South Korea, or using them now.
Yeah, she's clearly found them very effective. The idea is that visuals tap into a different way of learning and remembering.
How so? What are the benefits?
Well, they can make understanding much quicker and clearer. Her example of lion showing a picture is instant.
Right, avoids needing a long definition or translation, especially for concrete nouns.
Exactly. Creates a direct link between the word and the concept. It bypasses the need for just verbal processing.
And she mentioned memory retention. Visuals help things stick.
Big time. We're often very visual creatures. Linking a word or concept to an image creates a stronger memory trace. The image acts like a hook or a trigger for recall.
Like mental flashcards almost.
Kind of, yeah. And the other thing is engagement. Staring at text all day can get, boring.
Ah, true.
Visuals mix things up. They make learning more interactive, potentially more fun, which helps maintain focus and motivation. It caters to different learning styles, too.
Good point. Okay, that brings us to the final tip, number 10. And Tiffany says this one is the most important of all.
Believe in yourself.
It sounds simple, maybe even a bit cliche, but she argues it's absolutely foundational for language learning. Why?
Because learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be challenges. There will be times you feel stuck.
Plateaued.
Exactly. And your underlying belief in your ability to succeed, that's what carries you through those tough patches.
It combats that negative self-talk she mentioned.
Precisely. That inner critic that says, oh, you'll never get this, or you sound terrible. Believing in yourself helps you counter that with a more positive, encouraging internal dialogue.
I might not be perfect yet, but I'm learning. I'm capable.
Yes. And that positive mindset fuels motivation. It builds resilience. When you hit a roadblock, you see it as a temporary hurdle to overcome, not proof that you should give up.
So it keeps you going on that long journey. And she also connected it directly to speaking performance.
Absolutely. If you believe you can communicate effectively, that confidence comes across in your voice, in your delivery.
It makes you sound more fluent, even if your grammar isn't perfect yet.
It definitely can. Confidence smooths out speech. Hesitation often comes from self-doubt. Believing in yourself allows you to speak more boldly, more clearly.
And then she shares that incredible story about her own experience learning Korean.
Oh, that was powerful. Failing the test
Twice.
twice and feeling completely defeated, ready to quit.
That scene in her parents' kitchen feeling like a failure, it's so raw and honest.
It really is. And it makes her point so much stronger. She's not just saying believe in yourself from some perfect pedestal. She's saying it as someone who's been in that pit of discouragement.
And her parents' support was crucial too, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Their belief in her helped her find her own belief again. It highlights how important encouragement can be, whether from others or, crucially, from yourself.
And then she passes on the third try. It's such a great payoff to the story.
It really lands the message. Don't give up. Keep believing it is possible.
And she turns it directly to you, the listener, saying, look, you might feel like this too sometimes, but you can do it. Believe.
Yeah, that personal touch, grounded in her own struggle and success, makes the advice incredibly impactful. It's genuine empathy.
Okay, so let's quickly recap those 10 tips from Tiffany for boosting English fluency and confidence.
Got it. 1. Read aloud.
2. Don't worry about making mistakes. Embrace them.
3. Practice speaking in front of a mirror.
4.
Well,
Record yourself speaking and listen back critically.
5. Listen to and actively imitate native speakers.
6. Make the mental shift to thinking in English.
7. Practice summarizing information concisely.
8. Especially later on, focus on improving one skill at a time.
9. Use visual aids to help understanding and memory.
And 10, the big one. Believe in your own ability to succeed.
And it's worth repeating, right? While these are aimed at English learners,
Yeah.
the underlying ideas are so much broader. Reading aloud, great for any public speaking. Embracing mistakes, that's key for innovation in any field.
Focusing on one skill. Strategic learning for anything. Self-assessment through recording. Athletes do it. Musicians do it.
Exactly. It's about effective learning methodology and, crucially, mindset.
So for you listening, maybe think about which of these tips really jumps out at you. Which one feels like it addresses a challenge you're facing?
Whether it's English or learning guitar or starting a new project at work.
Great. Maybe pick just one or two of these ideas and try to consciously apply it this week. See what happens.
Remember Tiffany's story? It wasn't instant magic. It was perseverance.
Consistent effort fueled by that core belief. That seems to be the real key.
Absolutely. And maybe the final thought is this. Learning isn't always linear. You'll have ups and downs. Being kind to yourself during the dips and consciously reminding yourself of that belief in your potential. That's vital for staying the course. Sustained effort plus self-belief. That's a powerful combination for achieving pretty much anything worth doing.